Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas! It's a little bit cheap because we only have one more ending for Kyle as Santa, which I think we have to gift. Either we have to gift an artifact or we have to gift time machine. So let's go try the time machine. I think it's a time machine first. Kyle called for the families to gather around him. The children bounced over expectantly. Must be the artifact. Kyle called for the families to gather around him. The children bounced over expectantly. Oh no. Hear me out. What we're gonna do is we're gonna eat Gabby. We're gonna eat Gabby, and we're gonna take Gabby to give her as presents for the kids. Kyle approached his downstairs neighbor's door and knocked. A middle-aged woman named Gabby answered the door. She looked at Kyle expectantly. Consume Gabby! Kyle unhinged his jaw and swallowed Gabby whole. Job done. Kyle returned to the middle of the street. Go on Santa duties. Kyle realized it was wise to conduct his duties as Santa. Kyle could think of nothing better than to gather children around him and give them presents. Kyle supposed it was possible there were children in the nearby park, so he quickly walked over. Upon arriving, Kyle saw several families happily walking around and playing in the snow. Kyle called for the families to gather around him. The children bounced over expectantly. Kyle presented children with a gift. I died! Why? Why? Kyle bugged his eyes and started punching his stomach repeatedly. In a loud and sudden movement, Gabby was gifted to the children. Here, children! This is my neighbor, Gabby. Gabby looked around, equal parts confused and irritated. The parents of the children collectively started screaming, "Still yourselves!" Still yourselves! Gabby is a gift, not an enemy. Kyle, I'm not a thing! You need to stop doing this! Kyle looked hurt. Gabby, you're very pleasant, and I want to share you with the world. What on earth just happened? Where did she come from? The parents continued to be horrified. It's fine, everyone. This is my neighbor, Gabby. And then everybody understood. Oh, I see now, said one parent. Well, kids, you'd better gather her up because we need to go. The children formed a small line and hoisted Gabby over their heads. They slowly departed from the park, carrying her along. Kyle, don't forget your rent. The landlord was asking about it today, said Gabby as she was carried away. Kyle grunted, gave a small nod, and walked away. Later that night, Kyle heard Gabby's front door slam and wondered why she'd been returned. Kyle gifted a blessing. That was a blessing. Someone said, take Techno Jim into the closet with the time travel. We're gonna time travel with Techno Jim. That's what we're doing. Kyle shined his flashlight into his moist, cave-like closet that had not seen light in years. After several minutes of searching around with the light, Kyle saw something unusual in the back. A small metal box with a large red button set in the back, stamped with a time travel label. Use Techno Jim to upgrade. Kyle pulled out the electronics from Techno Jim's eyes and fingers and started shoving them into the box. The box began to rattle, imbued with the power of the important technology found on Techno Jim. Suddenly, with a pop and a fizz, Kyle found himself taken back to 19th century Europe. Kyle was riding inside of a horse-drawn carriage. He was surrounded by poofy dresses and shocked faces. Every face was stone cold, made of copper, and definitely a robot. Kyle found himself in Robo Europe. This is just Doctor Who. We found ourselves in Doctor Who. The gathered Robo denizens' heads started spinning and shooting out alarm lasers from their mouths and ears. Kyle reacted quickly. Oh, giving up and dying. By consuming the lasers for power. Kyle started to consume all of the lasers. Every laser he swallowed gave him more power. Soon, Kyle bloated up and kind of fart exploded? Lasers all over the place. The force of the explosion pushed all beings, metal and not, out of the carriage with great velocity. Kyle landed in a nearby field on his head and immediately lost consciousness. While Kyle was asleep, the robot citizens plugged his body into a generator linked to their main power grid. Having energy sucked from his body kept Kyle in a pseudo-cryogenic state, keeping him unconscious and preserved. Robo-scientists began to use Kyle's energy production as a center of study, launching the robot world into a golden age. Kyle started to power all the technological advancements of the robot world. Wars began to center around control of Kyle. Kyle was deemed as the most important discovery of the modern robo world. After humans took over the ancient robot civilization, Kyle was mummified by ancient Egyptians. I thought we went to 19th century Victorian England. What? Did it not say 19? Did it say 16? Where did we go in time? Kyle was stolen from a museum in the early 1800s. He was attempted to be smuggled across the Atlantic, but sank. Scientists uncovered him encased in ice in the Antarctic and shipped him by helicopter for study. On the way, Kyle was accidentally shoved out of the helicopter. He crash-landed through the roof onto his bed in his apartment. After several days of lying unconscious in bed, Kyle began to stir. Kyle ended up in bed! I really like that. Let's go try the other three. Two. Let's go try the other two. Kyle reacted quickly by firing lasers from his mouth. Kyle's neck started to spin at an alarming rate. Lasers fired out of every orifice. Although the robo-denizens were made for such tasks, Kyle was simply much better. Soon, they had all been incapacitated. Kyle was suddenly, inexplicably exhausted. He lay down on one of the robot's laps and fell asleep. While Kyle was asleep, the robot citizens plugged his body into the power grid. Having energy sucked from his body, Kyle cryogenic preserved. This is the same. Yeah, Kyle ended up in bed. Let's try the last one. See if we get a different one with the last one. By giving up and dying. Kyle decided to give up and die on the spot. Kyle wasn't able to die on the spot for various reasons. His ability did not stop him from trying, however. In the meantime, he was pummeled by alarm lasers. Eventually, one of the lasers caused a synapse overload in Kyle's frontal cortex and he passed out. They're all the same. That's actually a little bit of a disappointment. Let's try letting Gabby go with the Are You Guilty? Am I a mother? Rachel, am I a mother? Kyle looked at her very seriously. Rachel was visibly unsure of how to respond. Well, Kyle, I think you may be a better source of answering that question than I am. But do you think I'm a mother? Asked Kyle, pushing further. Rachel paused for a second before answering. I think you inspire youth to pursue STEM fields, she answered. Are you guilty? Kyle threw his questions on the floor and stood up, pointing at her. Rachel's eyes twitched slightly. Guilty of what, dear Kyle? She smiled disingenuously. Guilty of your crime. Rachel did not answer. Her eyelids both started twitching uncontrollably. Call the police. Kyle pulled out his phone and dialed the police. Hello, police, said Kyle. I believe I found a criminal. Rachel began to run towards the exit. On her way, she swatted Kyle's phone out of her hand. Let her go. Rachel disappeared out of the door, never to be seen again. In the coming days, the grand larcenies that had been plaguing the city stopped. Kyle was credited with exposing Rachel's crime spree, but nobody remembered in a couple weeks. A month later, in the European city that Rachel had planned her vacation to, crime rates skyrocketed. Kyle solved a crime. That wasn't my favorite out of the Rachel crime endings. Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing his immediate need for bugs. Kyle started to pick between the fuzz of his bedroom carpet, hoping to catch a stray beetle or two. Soon, he had a small handful of various insects, dead and alive, safe for later use. Kyle stashed the wriggling mass for later use. Check locked door. Kyle walked over to the strange door in the hallway, but found quickly that the door was locked from the inside. Kyle used his ghostly powers to walk straight through the door. Kyle found himself in the room he stashed the various items sent to him by fans. Kyle walked over to the dilapidated sewing machine. Its box was only half removed. Sew bug puppets. Kyle started sewing dead bugs together to make small, actuated finger puppets. Kyle crafted a bug puppet for each finger. He named them after guests he'd interviewed on his show. Let's go eat, and I'll meet you guys in the interview. A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on. Kyle slipped his bug puppets onto his fingers. "Hello, everybody," he said, wiggling the puppet he had named after himself. "I'm Kyle." "And I'm Rachel!" Kyle screamed, wiggling a different finger. "You're so much better than me!" "I know, Rachel!" Kyle wiggled. He looked meaningfully at the human Rachel. Said one of Kyle's other puppets. "I'm super fat, and Kyle interviewed me last week." "And I'm super irritating," said another finger, "and not very attractive." Rachel stared at Kyle, incredibly disoriented. "Kyle," she asked, "what are those puppets made of?" Kyle thrust both hands at Rachel's face, pointing the puppet. Sorry. Kyle thrusted both hands at Rachel's face, puppets pointed at her eyes. "We aren't puppets, Rachel," he said, scrunching his fingers up and down. "We're real people." What's going on? Rachel plucked the puppet that Kyle had said was her off his... "Kyle," she exclaimed, "this is several dead bugs patched together." "Accept us, Rachel," said Kyle, scratching. "We need acceptance." Rachel exited her chair and walked out of frame. In a moment, she returned with a bag. She plucked each puppet off Kyle's hands and tossed them into a bag. "Kyle, leave the bugs alone next time," she said. Rachel left the frame again, bringing the bag of puppets along with her. Kyle, suddenly by himself, was unsure what to do. After a few minutes of hemming and hawing, Kyle resorted to telling jokes for the remainder of the broadcast. Fans did not notice much difference between this and previous episodes. Kyle prepared an that was an average episode. Oh man. We still need to beat Rachel by ourselves without the help of Gabby, and I think we have to use the time machine to do it. Kyle decided to stay put and wither away. Kyle withered successfully and died. Shucks! Kyle's now a ghost. This does not relieve him of his responsibilities. Kyle exited his bed and took a quick glance around his bedroom. Kyle made his way over to his desk and sat down. Kyle opened up the side drawer on his desk and grabbed one of the items stored there. Assorted change. Kyle scooped up the change scattered around the desk drawer. Kyle grabbed the flashlight, but after jiggling the switch, he found it was out of batteries. Kyle wrote down his last question. "Are you guilty?" Kyle ripped his page of notes out of the notebook and got up from his desk. Kyle walked into the clean, white tech store. He was greeted by Techno Jim, an elaborate cutout mascot with flashing lights. Kyle counted out $1.98 in pennies and nickels and traded them for a small packet of batteries. Kyle crammed the batteries into his flashlight. Kyle opened the closet. Kyle shined his flashlight into his moist cave-like closet that had not seen light in years. After several minutes of searching around with the light, Kyle saw something unusual in the back. Ha ha! 0 hours left, but we can time travel. Start the day over! A small metal box with a large red button sat in the back, stamped with the time travel label. Kyle, bored of the situation, mashed the button, hardly reading the label above. The box hummed and shook. The outside metal grew hot and slowly curved in on itself. In a moment, it was early in the morning. Kyle had gained several hours of preparation time. Alright, let's get dressed, grab the claymore, and eat breakfast. Open the closet. Choose an outfit. Kyle decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit, knowing how important appearance is. Kyle wasn't sure of what exactly caused him to decide to wear his armor, but right now it felt like the right thing to do. After much squeezing and sweating, Kyle managed to wrap the metal suit, around his dumpy self. Check locked door. Kyle walked over to the strange door in the hallway, but found quickly that the door was locked from the inside. Kyle used his ghostly powers to walk straight through the door. Kyle found himself in the room he stashed the various items sent to him by fans. Expecting a battle, Kyle grabbed the laser claymore. Alright, time to eat. Kyle opened the fridge intending to find something to eat. Kyle constructed a breakfast of poached eggs and toast along with a small fruit cup and grilled sausage. Kyle ate his breakfast slowly and thoughtfully, enjoying every bite. He felt refreshed. Now we have to get rid of Gabby, because Gabby will save us if we don't get rid of Gabby. Leave apartment, visit downstairs neighbor. Kyle approached his downstairs neighbor's door and knocked. A middle-aged woman named Gabby answered the door. She looked at Kyle expectantly. Kyle unhinged his jaw and swallowed Gabby whole. Job done. Kyle returned to the middle of the street. Good evening, everyone, said Kyle, looking at the camera. Welcome back to Stay Up Late with Kyle. Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who needs no more introduction. Kyle motioned to Rachel, who smiled and waved at the camera. Hello, Kyle, she said. I'm glad to be here. Well, I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss, so we might as well dive right in, said Kyle. I'm very ready, said Rachel with a winning smile. Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier. Rachel, are you guilty? Kyle threw his questions on the floor, stood up, and pointed at her. Rachel's eyes twitched slightly. Guilty of what, dear Kyle? She smiled disingenuously. Guilty of your crimes! Rachel did not answer. Her eyelids both started twitching uncontrollably. Kyle pulled out his phone and dialed the police. Hello, police, said Kyle. I believe I found a criminal! Rachel began to run towards the exit. On her way, she swatted Kyle's phone out of his hand. Tripper! Kyle stuck out his leg. Rachel stumbled and crashed to the floor. But in a moment, she was on her feet. She drew a blunt weapon seemingly out of thin air and started to swing towards Kyle. Kyle produced his laser claymore and blocked her first defenses. A grand fight between the two started. Blow was traded for blow. Spins, flips. Rachel threw a large swing towards Kyle's head. He blocked forcefully, sending himself forwards. Kyle and Rachel found themselves inches away from each other. Face to face, weapons crossed. As they looked at each other, something magical happened. Kyle thought about all the times Rachel had smiled at him. Kyle thought about her witty, polite answers. Rachel began to think about how intelligently Kyle had prepared just to talk to her. She thought about how he lived, not magnificently, but in a small, cluttered apartment. Kyle and Rachel had slowly, insidiously been falling in love. Insidiously? Kyle and Rachel's lock was broken. They continued to fight back and forth, but their eyes never parted. Rachel spun around, legs out. She kicked Kyle's claymore out of his hand. She grabbed Kyle by the front of his shirt and tugged him close. Perhaps, she whispered to him, the last thing I should steal is your heart. Rachel pecked Kyle on the lips and slid out of the door, disappearing. In the following days, Rachel was not found. Many sums of money and artifacts that had been stolen from museums and banks were returned overnight. Small amounts of the sum were missing. Equal amounts were donated anonymously to homeless charities. Kyle spit Gabby back out after his fight with Rachel. She continued to be a vigilante and stopped many crimes. After receiving a note one night under his door, Kyle took a sudden vacation to a city in Europe. Although he had stated to his fans it would be a short trip, he never returned. Slowly, Kyle fell out of common mind. News outlets began to cover other topics. Reruns stopped airing. Kyle faded into obscurity. But it's rumored that a couple from the US had started a family on the coast of the British Isles, and they seemed quite happy to not be famous anymore. Kyle was famous. Oh my goodness. That was a good ending! I like that. Oh, I like that a lot. Well, everybody, this is Kyle is famous, and now was famous. What a fitting ending to bring an ending to this series until more DLC. Thank you, each and every one who has joined me on Kyle is Famous and Kyle is Santa. This has been a wonderful trip, and I've enjoyed every second of it. If you want to see any other extra DLC for Kyle is Famous, if there is any, I will do it. I'm going to play the developer's other game, John Szymanski. It's called Maximum Action. I purchased it, and I'm going to play it soon. Hit that subscribe button to see that, and whatever else we do on the channel. If you have any like of this, hit like button. And if you have any comment of this, hit comment button. If you want to see games, leave in the comment section. I am happy to play stuff you want to see. And if you would share this video, any and all of that would make my heart go, Kyle was famous. Wait, did the ending change? It's not Kyle was famous. Was it always? It's not Kyle is famous. It's Kyle was famous. Have I been calling this the wrong thing the whole time? It did. It is Kyle is famous. The title changed to Kyle was famous because we got all the endings. That's so cool. We have all of the endings. Oh, I love it. Some of those were difficult to get. Very obscure. And as always, have an amazing rest of your day and use your heart and your blink. Bye.
And then everybody understood. I see now. Kyle presented children with a gift.